My mom's birthday party was perfect and I paid for everything, until one call from my daughter exposed the cruel trap my family set for me. I am Lauren, 35 years old, and I thought I knew my family. That Sunday, at my mom, Catherine's 60th birthday, everything seemed perfect. The cake, the decorations, the smiles. Then my phone rang. It was Amanda, my 10-year-old daughter. "Mom, get out now." Her voice was urgent, scared. "What happened?" I asked, heart racing. "Get out of the house," she whispered, voice shaking. Something in her tone made me listen without understanding why. I walked out. Before that fateful day, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but whose is? 2 years earlier, my husband David and I had finalized our divorce after 12 years of marriage. The split was difficult but necessary. We had grown apart, arguing constantly about everything from finances to parenting styles. Eventually, we both recognized that staying together was doing more harm than good, especially for Amanda. The divorce was relatively amicable, at least on the surface. We agreed to share custody of Amanda, with her spending weekdays with me and weekends with David. He moved into an apartment about 20 minutes away, close enough to stay involved in Amanda's life, but far enough to give us all some breathing room. I kept our house, a modest 3-bedroom in a good school district that I had fallen in love with when we first bought it 7 years ago. My relationship with my mother, Catherine, had always been strong, and it only grew stronger after the divorce. She lived about 15 minutes away in the house where I grew up, and she often helped with Amanda, picking her up from school when my work schedule got hectic or having her over for sleepovers. Catherine was my rock, my confidant, the person I turned to when life got overwhelming. I worked as a real estate agent for a local agency, a career I had built over the past 8 years. The flexible schedule allowed me to be there for Amanda, but it also meant unpredictable income and long hours showing houses on evenings and weekends. I was good at my job, though, and had built a solid reputation in our community. Amanda was always an exceptionally perceptive child. Even at 10, she noticed things that others missed. She could walk into a room and immediately sense the emotional undercurrents, whether someone was upset or hiding something. David used to joke that she'd make a great detective someday. That perceptiveness sometimes made the divorce harder on her because she picked up on tensions we tried to hide. But it also meant we could have remarkably honest conversations for a parent and child. In the months leading up to my mother's birthday, I started noticing strange occurrences around my house. Nothing major at first. My car keys weren't where I thought I left them. A bracelet went missing, then mysteriously reappeared in my jewelry box a week later. Paperwork from my desk seemed slightly rearranged. I dismissed these incidents as stress or forgetfulness, blaming my hectic schedule and single mom brain. More unsettling was the feeling of being watched. Sometimes I'd look up from my laptop while working at home and swear someone had just been looking through the window. Once I came home to find the back door unlocked, though I was certain I had locked it before leaving. Another time, Amanda mentioned hearing footsteps in the hallway at night when we were both in bed. I installed a basic security system after that, attributing my unease to single-woman paranoia rather than any real threat. Planning my mother's 60th birthday celebration became my passion project, a welcome distraction from these unsettling experiences. Catherine had always gone all out for my birthdays growing up, and I wanted to return the favor. I booked her favorite restaurant for a private party, ordered a custom cake with her favorite flavors, and spent weeks coordinating with family members for a video montage of birthday wishes from relatives who couldn't attend in person. My brother Paul and his wife Elaine were involved in the planning too, though their contributions were minimal. Paul was 3 years older than me, successful in finance, and had always been our mother's favorite, though she would never admit it. We had a complicated relationship, competitive in the way siblings often are, but generally supportive, or so I thought. In the weeks leading up to the party, I noticed Paul and Elaine becoming strangely secretive. They would stop talking when I entered the room during planning sessions at my mother's house. Once I overheard Paul on the phone saying, "She has no idea. Let's keep it that way." When I asked who he was talking to, he claimed it was a client and quickly changed the subject. Elaine, who had never been particularly warm toward me, became suddenly interested in my life, asking probing questions about my finances, my relationship with Amanda, even my dating life post-divorce. At the time, I wrote it off as awkward attempts to connect, maybe even genuine concern. For the birthday weekend, Amanda was staying with David. They had planned a father-daughter camping trip months in advance, and though Amanda was disappointed to miss the party, I encouraged her to go. My mother understood, and we arranged for Amanda to visit the following weekend for a special grandmother-granddaughter tea. In hindsight, I'm grateful Amanda wasn't there for what happened, but I had no way of knowing how her absence would ultimately save me. That weekend, I was full of hope. I thought my mother's birthday would mark a new chapter for our family, bringing us closer together after the tensions of the past few years. I envisioned heartfelt toasts, shared laughter, maybe even a heart-to-heart with Paul to clear the air about whatever was causing the strange vibes between us. I was determined to make it perfect for my mother, to show her how much she meant to me, how grateful I was for her support. I had no idea that in less than 24 hours, my perception of my entire family would be shattered beyond repair. Catherine's birthday celebration was everything I had hoped it would create on the surface. I had transformed her home into an elegant venue with twinkling string lights draped across the ceiling, vases of her favorite lilies and hydrangeas on every table, and framed photos from throughout her life displayed on a special memory wall I had created. The dining room table was extended to its full length and covered with a cream-colored tablecloth set with the good china that usually stayed locked in the cabinet. I arrived 3 hours early to oversee the catering setup and add all the personal touches. My mother was genuinely surprised by the transformation of her home, tears welling in her eyes as she hugged me and whispered, "You didn't have to go to all this trouble," but the joy in her expression told me it was exactly what she wanted. Family members began arriving around 6 in the evening. First came my Aunt Clara and Uncle Dennis from my mother's side, bearing an expensive-looking gift wrapped in silver paper. Then my cousins Natalie and Thomas with their spouses. Paul and Elaine arrived fashionably late, making an entrance in matching navy blue outfits that seemed unnecessarily formal for a family gathering. As guests mingled and sipped champagne in the living room, I felt a surge of pride at how well everything was coming together. The caterers were efficiently serving appetizers. The playlist I had carefully curated was providing the perfect background ambience, and my mother was beaming as she greeted each guest. For a moment, I pushed aside the stress of the past few weeks and allowed myself to enjoy the results of my planning. But beneath the surface of the perfect party, tensions were simmering. I noticed Paul and Elaine exchanging glances whenever I spoke, subtle eye rolls or raised eyebrows that made me feel like I was the subject of a private joke. When I asked Elaine if she needed help finding anything in the kitchen, she replied with an overly sweet, "No thanks, Lauren. I know this house better than you these days," which struck me as an odd comment. About an hour into the party, I overheard a whispered conversation between Paul and Uncle Dennis near the hallway bathroom. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but as I approached to tell them dinner would be served soon, their words carried to me. "Everything's in place," Paul was saying. "The lawyer said the papers are ready. We just need to get through tonight." Uncle Dennis nodded. "Catherine's on board. She understands what needs to happen." "She knows enough," Paul replied. "The less she knows about certain aspects, the better. More convincing that way." They noticed me then and abruptly changed the subject to the weather forecast, leaving me confused and slightly unsettled. What papers? What was my mother supposed to know about? And why the secrecy? I tried to dismiss it as business talk. Uncle Dennis had invested in some of Paul's financial ventures in the past, and I assumed it was related to that. Still, the conversation left me with an uneasy feeling that I couldn't shake. As we gathered around the table for dinner, I noticed my mother seemed unusually quiet. She smiled and thanked everyone for coming, but there was something forced about her demeanor. When our eyes met across the table, she quickly looked away as if unable to maintain eye contact with me. It was subtle enough that I doubted anyone else noticed, but as her daughter, I could tell something was off. The dinner itself was delicious, a 4-course meal featuring all of my mother's favorites. The conversation flowed with family members sharing stories and memories of Catherine. On the surface, everything appeared normal, festive even. but I couldn't help noticing undercurrents. Elaine kept steering the conversation toward my recent struggles. Lauren, how's the real estate market these days? I heard your agency had some layoffs recently. And later, Amanda seems to be adjusting to the divorce, but children often hide their true feelings, don't they? Each comment seemed designed to highlight my challenges or vulnerabilities. My cousin Thomas asked innocently about Amanda's absence, and before I could answer, Paul jumped in. Lauren's ex has her this weekend. Probably for the best, considering children pick up on adult tensions. The way he emphasized tensions made it sound like I was the source of some ongoing family drama. By the time we brought out the birthday cake, an elaborate 3-tiered creation with fondant flowers that had cost me nearly $300, I was feeling distinctly uncomfortable. Something was happening beneath the surface of this gathering, some current I couldn't quite identify but could definitely feel. After the cake was served, my mother excused herself to use the bathroom. When she didn't return after 15 minutes, I went to check on her. The hallway bathroom door was closed, but I could hear muffled sounds coming from inside. I knocked gently. "Mom, are you okay in there?" There was a pause, then a sniffling sound. "I'm fine, honey. Just needed a moment. I'll be right out." But she didn't sound fine. She sounded like she was crying. I waited in the hallway, and when she emerged, her eyes were red-rimmed despite her attempts to repair her makeup. "Mom, what's wrong? Is it too much, the party?" She shook her head and patted my cheek. "No, sweetheart. The party is lovely. You did a wonderful job." Then she leaned in and hugged me tightly, longer than usual. When she pulled back, there was an expression on her face I couldn't quite read: regret. Fear? Before I could ask more questions, Elaine appeared in the hallway. "There you two are. Paul's about to give a toast. Everyone's waiting." My mother squared her shoulders and returned to the dining room, leaving me more confused than ever. I followed, telling myself I was overreacting, that she was probably just emotional about turning 60. Big birthdays could do that to people. Back in the dining room, Paul was standing at the head of the table, champagne glass raised. "To my wonderful mother, on her 60th birthday," he began, his voice carrying the practiced charm he used with clients, "and to new beginnings for our family." There was something in the way everyone raised their glasses, a sense of shared knowledge from which I was excluded, that sent a chill down my spine. I lifted my glass automatically, smiling to hide my growing unease. That's when my phone rang. The ringtone cut through the room like a siren, disrupting Paul's toast. I glanced at my phone screen and saw Amanda's name flashing. Normally, I might have let it go to voicemail given the timing, but something about the coincidence of her calling right at that moment struck me as important. "Sorry, it's Amanda." "I should take this," I said, stepping away from the table. I noticed Paul and Elaine exchange another one of their looks as I walked into the kitchen for privacy. "Amanda, is everything okay, sweetie?" I answered, concerned that she'd call during what she knew was her grandmother's birthday dinner. "Mom." Her voice was urgent, frightened in a way I'd never heard before. "You need to get out now." "What? What are you talking about? Aren't you camping with your dad?" I felt a cold wave of panic. Had something happened to Amanda? "I am, but that's not important. You need to get out of the house." Her voice shook with intensity. "Amanda, honey, slow down. What happened? Are you safe?" I was struggling to make sense of her warning. "I'm fine, Mom, but you're not. I heard Dad on the phone last night when he thought I was asleep." She lowered her voice to a whisper. "He was talking to Uncle Paul. They're planning something bad, Mom. Really bad." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? What did you hear exactly?" "Dad said everything was ready for after the party, that once they had you, I don't know, recorded or something, they were going to use it against you. Something about you being unstable and them getting control. Uncle Paul said they just needed you to react the right way when they confronted you." The pieces were starting to come together in my mind. The strange behavior, the secretive conversations, my mother's tears. Mom, are you listening? You need to leave. Don't let them know that you know. Just make an excuse and go. Amanda's voice was pleading now. Okay, baby. I trust you. I'm leaving right now. My mind was racing, but I knew in my gut that Amanda wouldn't make this up. Call me when you're safe. Okay, I will. I love you, Amanda. Love you too, Mom. Be careful. I ended the call and stood frozen in Catherine's kitchen, trying to process what I just heard. My own brother and ex-husband were plotting against me. To what end, and who else was involved? I could hear the party continuing in the dining room, laughter and the clinking of glasses. Whatever they were planning, it seemed likely to happen tonight at the party. I needed to leave without arousing suspicion. Taking a deep breath, I composed my features and walked back into the dining room with my phone still in hand, trying to look concerned but not panicked. Everything okay? My mother asked, genuine worry in her eyes. Actually, no. That was Mrs. Wilson next door to me. Apparently, there's a water leak in my house, and it's starting to come through the ceiling. I'm so sorry, but I need to go deal with this. The lie came surprisingly easily, fueled by adrenaline and fear. Now? Can't it wait until after the party? Paul asked, a flash of annoyance crossing his face. I wish it could, but she says it's pretty bad. The water's coming through the light fixtures. I started gathering my purse and coat, avoiding eye contact. Mom, I'm so sorry to run out on your party. I'll make it up to you. I promise. My mother stood up, clearly torn. Do you want someone to go with you? Paul? Or Dennis could help. No, I said too quickly, then modulated my tone. No, that's okay. You all stay and enjoy the party. I'll call the emergency plumber and deal with it. Please don't let this ruin your birthday. Paul was watching me intently, suspicion evident in his expression. At least let me walk you out. That's okay. I know the way, I said with forced lightness, already moving toward the door. Love you, Mom. Happy birthday again. I hugged my mother quickly, noticing again how tightly she held on, then waved to the rest of the family and hurried out before anyone could insist on accompanying me. Once in my car, I locked the doors immediately and sat for a moment, hands shaking too badly to put the key in the ignition. What had just happened? What was I running from exactly? I had no concrete evidence of anything, just my daughter's frightened warning and my own growing sense of unease. I started the car and pulled away from my mother's house, glancing in the rearview mirror to see Paul standing at the living room window, watching me leave. The sight sent another chill through me. Once I was a few blocks away, I pulled over and called Amanda again, needing more information. Mom, are you out? She answered immediately. Yes, I'm in my car. I told them there was a water leak at our house. Amanda, I need you to tell me exactly what you heard. Everything. Amanda took a deep breath. Last night, Dad thought I was asleep in the tent. He walked away from the campsite to make a call, but not far enough. I heard him talking to Uncle Paul. Dad said everything was set for after Grandma's party. They were talking about some plan to record you getting upset or angry. Why would they want that? I asked, though terrible possibilities were already forming in my mind. Dad said something about building a case, that they needed evidence of your erratic behavior. Uncle Paul said Elaine had coached Grandma on what to say to you to trigger a response. Amanda's voice cracked. They talked about me too, Mom. Dad said once they had custody, things would be better for everyone. My blood ran cold. Custody? They're trying to take you away from me. I think so. And Dad mentioned something about Grandma's money too. Uncle Paul said once you were out of the picture, they could proceed with the estate planning as discussed. I felt physically ill. My own family was conspiring not only to take my daughter, but apparently to get control of my mother's assets as well, and they were using my mother to do it. Did you confront your dad about this? I asked, suddenly worried for Amanda's safety. No way. I pretended to be asleep when he came back. I've been acting normal all day. He thinks I'm in the tent reading now. Smart girl. Listen, Amanda. I don't want you to go home with your dad after the camping trip. Is there any way you can call Jillian? Jillian was my best friend, someone Amanda had known her whole life. I could say I feel sick and need to go home, but won't Dad just take me to your house? Tell him I texted you that I'm dealing with a water leak and staying with Jillian until it's fixed. Ask him to take you there instead. Okay, I can do that. And Amanda, don't let on that you know anything. Okay, I know it's a lot to ask, but it's important. I won't. I promise. She paused. Mom, where are you going to go? It was a good question. I couldn't go home if they thought I was there dealing with a water leak. And if what Amanda said was true, I didn't feel safe at any family member's home. I'm going to get a hotel room for tonight. I'll text you the details once I'm checked in. Okay. Be careful, Mom. You too, sweetheart. I love you. After hanging up, I sat in my car for several minutes trying to make sense of what was happening. My phone buzzed with a text from Paul. Everything okay with the leak? Need any help? I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to a hotel near the interstate, paid cash for a room, and brought only my purse inside. Once in the room, I turned off my phone, not ready to deal with the barrage of messages I knew would be coming. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying conversations and incidents from the past few months, seeing them in a new, sinister light. The missing items in my house, Paul's sudden interest in my finances, Elaine's probing questions about Amanda, it all pointed to a coordinated effort to undermine me, to paint me as unstable or unfit in some way. But why? Was it really just about my mother's money? Or was there something else driving this betrayal? As I stared at the hotel ceiling in the dark, one thing became abundantly clear. I couldn't trust anyone in my family anymore. Except, thank God, my daughter. I woke up the next morning feeling like I had barely slept, my mind still racing with questions and fears. Turning my phone back on was like opening the floodgates. 27 missed calls. 43 text messages. Most were from Paul and my mother, with a few from other family members who had been at the party. The text started concerned, then grew increasingly urgent. Paul, how's the water situation? Need any help? Mom, honey, is everything okay? Call me when you can. Paul, Lauren, no one's answering at your house. Where are you? Mom, sweetheart, we're worried. Please call. Paul, this isn't funny, Lauren. People are concerned. The later messages took on a different tone. Paul, I drove by your house. There's no water leak. What's going on? Mom, Lauren, please. You're scaring me. Just let us know you're safe. Paul, Amanda called Elaine looking for you. What kind of game are you playing? The last message from Paul sent a chill down my spine. Whatever Amanda told you is a misunderstanding. We need to talk as a family. This behavior isn't helping your case. My case, the same phrasing Amanda had overheard. It confirmed her warning wasn't a misunderstanding or childhood imagination. Something real was happening. I texted only my mother, I'm safe. Need some time alone. We'll call later. Then I called Jillian, the one person outside my family I felt I could trust completely. Lauren, where are you? Your brother called here looking for you last night. Jillian sounded worried. I'm at a hotel. Jill, something really strange is happening with my family. I explained Amanda's call and the warning, the odd behavior I'd noticed, and my escape from the party. There was a long pause before Jillian responded. Lauren, I didn't want to get involved in family matters, but Paul came to see me last week. I felt my stomach drop. What did he want? He said he was concerned about you, that you'd been acting paranoid, claiming people were watching you or coming into your house. He asked if I'd noticed any erratic behavior. Jillian's voice was hesitant. He mentioned something about Amanda potentially being in an unstable environment. I felt physically ill. And what did you tell him? That you seemed completely fine to me, Lauren. I've known you for 20 years. I told him he was way off base, but he seemed so convinced, so concerned. He said other family members had noticed changes in your behavior too. Jill, they're setting me up. I don't know exactly why, but they're trying to make me look unstable. My voice cracked. They want to take Amanda. That's crazy. Why would Paul want to take Amanda? I don't know, but there's more to it. Something about my mother's estate. I need to figure out what's going on. Jillian was quiet for a moment. I know someone who might be able to help. My cousin Marcus is a private investigator. He's discreet and thorough. Want me to call him? Yes, please. I was desperate for allies, for information. Where are you staying? I'll bring you some clothes and things. I gave her the hotel information, made her promise not to tell anyone, and hung up. Then I checked my email, looking for any clues about what might be happening. There was nothing unusual except an email from my mother's financial advisor from 2 weeks ago that I hadn't opened yet. The subject line read, "Re-updated estate planning documents for review." I opened it with shaking hands. The email was brief and professional. "Dear Miss Barrett, attached, please find the updated estate planning documents for Catherine Barrett as requested. Please review the changes to the trust structure and beneficiary designations at your convenience. Once you've had a chance to review, we can schedule a time to discuss any questions or concerns. Best regards, Michael Thompson, Senior Financial Advisor." I hadn't requested any documents. I had no idea what changes had been made to my mother's estate plan. The attachment required a password I didn't have. A sick feeling grew in my stomach. Someone had impersonated me to get these documents, and given everything else, it wasn't hard to guess who. Jillian arrived an hour later with a suitcase of clothes and her cousin Marcus, a serious-looking man in his 40s with kind eyes that contrasted with his otherwise stern appearance. "Lauren, this is Marcus. He can help us figure out what's going on." Jillian introduced us. Marcus got straight to business. Jillian explained the situation. "First, we need to establish some facts. Do you have any evidence of these plans your daughter overheard?" "Just what she told me and this email." I showed him the financial advisor email on my phone. Marcus nodded. "That's a start. We need more financial records, communications, anything that shows coordination between your brother and ex-husband." "How do we get that?" "Leave that to me. But first, let's make sure you and your daughter are safe. Have you spoken to her today?" I shook my head. I was waiting until I knew her father wouldn't be around. "Text her. Make sure she's okay. Don't mention anything about our conversation or plans." I sent Amanda a brief text asking how she was and letting her know I was fine. She responded immediately that she was at Jillian's house and her father had seemed angry but didn't push when she said she was feeling sick and wanted to go to Jillian's. Over the next 3 days, Marcus worked diligently, using methods I sometimes preferred not to know about. Jillian stayed with Amanda at her house while I remained at the hotel, venturing out only when necessary and avoiding family members' increasingly desperate attempts to contact me. On the 4th day, Marcus arrived at my hotel room with a thick folder. "I've got something," he said without preamble. "Your mother changed her will and trust 3 weeks ago. The new documents remove you as a beneficiary and trustee, citing concerns about your mental stability. Paul is now the sole trustee." "What?" I felt like I'd been punched. "That's impossible. My mother would never do that." "There's more. I found emails between Paul and your ex-husband dating back 6 months discussing their concerns about your increasingly erratic behavior and the need to protect Amanda and Catherine's assets." Marcus laid out document after document, emails, financial statements, even medical consultation notes from a psychiatrist I had never met, who nonetheless had detailed notes about my supposed paranoia and instability. "They'd been building this case methodically," Marcus explained, "creating a paper trail of your alleged mental decline. The plan, as far as I can tell, was to confront you at the birthday party, record your reaction, and use that as the final evidence they needed." But why? What do they gain? Control of your mother's substantial estate, of your daughter, and by extension, the child support and other financial benefits that come with custody. I remembered the whispered conversation between Paul and Uncle Dennis. The papers are ready. They had been planning to have me declared mentally unfit to take everything from me. There's one more thing you should know, Marcus said, his expression grave. Based on these documents, your mother appears to have been aware of at least some of this plan. That revelation hurt more than anything else. My own mother, who I thought was my greatest ally, had apparently been part of this conspiracy. But she was crying in the bathroom, I said, more to myself than to Marcus. She seemed sad, regretful. People can be pressured into things they don't fully understand or agree with, Marcus suggested, especially older individuals when family members they trust are doing the pressuring. I nodded, trying to hold back tears. What do we do now? Now we go on the offensive, Marcus said firmly. They've been building a case against you. We're going to build one against them. As painful as these discoveries were, they also brought a strange sense of relief. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't paranoid. There was a real conspiracy. And now I had proof. More importantly, I had a fighting chance to protect myself and my daughter. With Marcus's help, I began gathering my own evidence. We discovered that Paul had been in financial trouble for months, his investment firm losing clients after a series of poor decisions. The promise of controlling my mother's substantial estate provided a convenient solution to his problems. David, my ex-husband, had recently lost his job and was 3 months behind on his rent. The prospect of full custody of Amanda would mean increased child support from me to him, not to mention access to the trust fund my mother had established for Amanda's education. Elaine, it turned out, was the architect of much of the plan. Her background in psychology made her particularly effective at gaslighting me and coaching others on how to make me appear unstable. The more we uncovered, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't a sudden decision or misunderstanding. This was a calculated, months-long conspiracy to destroy my life for financial gain. The betrayal cut deep, especially my mother's involvement. But as Marcus pointed out, the evidence suggested she may not have fully understood or consented to what was happening. The emails showed Paul telling her they were protecting me, getting me help for problems I didn't know I had. By the end of the week, I had a comprehensive understanding of what I was facing and who was involved. The knowledge was painful but empowering. For the first time since Amanda's warning call, I felt ready to confront the people who had betrayed me and fight for what was mine. Armed with the evidence Marcus had gathered, I decided it was time to stop hiding and start fighting back. My first move was strategic rather than emotional. Instead of confronting everyone at once, I would approach them individually, using what I knew to gauge their true involvement and potentially find allies. I started with David, arranging to meet him at a public cafe where Marcus could observe from a distance. When David arrived, he looked simultaneously angry and concerned, an expression I recognized from our marriage whenever he was trying to manipulate a situation. "Lauren, what the hell is going on? You disappear for days. Amanda staying with Jillian. Everyone's worried sick." His voice carried just the right note of concerned ex-husband, loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. I kept my voice calm and level. "I know about the plan, David. I know what you and Paul were trying to do." His expression flickered, but he recovered quickly. "I don't know what you're talking about. Paul and your mother are concerned about your mental health. That's all. These paranoid delusions aren't helping your case." There's that phrase again. Your case. I slid a folder across the table. "This contains copies of emails between you and Paul discussing how to have me declared mentally unfit so you could get custody of Amanda and access to my mother's money. Do you want to revise your statement?" David opened the folder, his face paling as he scanned the first few pages. He closed it quickly and looked around, lowering his voice. "Look, you're misunderstanding the situation. We were concerned about you, the way you've been acting, talking about people watching you, things moving in your house. Things that were actually happening because you or someone you were working with was coming into my house, setting me up." I leaned forward. Amanda overheard you on the phone with Paul during your camping trip. That's why I left the party. That's why I've been in hiding. David's expression hardened. You're using our daughter against me now, having her spy and make up stories. She didn't make anything up. She heard you planning to record me at the party to use it as evidence. Tell me I'm wrong, David. He was silent for a long moment, calculating his options. Finally, he sighed. It wasn't my idea. Paul came to me with concerns about your behavior. He said your mother was worried too. He had documentation from doctors, witnesses. Fake documentation. I've never seen those doctors. How was I supposed to know that? David ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from our marriage when he was caught in a lie. Look, I just wanted what was best for Amanda. Paul convinced me you were having some kind of breakdown. Then yes, he mentioned that if I had custody, there would be financial benefits. But it wasn't about the money. It was absolutely about the money. You're 3 months behind on rent, David. You lost your job and didn't tell me. Were you even going to continue paying child support? His face reddened. You've been investigating me. You were plotting to take my daughter and destroy my reputation. Did you think I wouldn't fight back? David's demeanor changed, becoming more aggressive. You know what? Maybe Paul was right. These wild accusations, hiring private investigators, this isn't normal behavior, Lauren. Save it. We both know what's really happening here. I stood up. I'm giving you one chance to back out of this. Tell Paul and anyone else involved that you're done. Admit to Amanda that you lied, or the next time we talk will be through my lawyer. You're threatening me now? David's voice rose. After keeping my daughter from me for days. This isn't helping your case, Lauren. It's just proving our point. I leaned down, keeping my voice steady. I have recorded this entire conversation, David. I have the emails. I have Amanda's testimony about what she overheard. If you try to take my daughter, I will fight you with everything I have, and I will win. I walked out, leaving him staring after me. It wasn't a complete victory, but I had confirmed what I suspected. David was involved, but possibly not the ringleader. Paul and Elaine seemed to be driving this, with my mother and David as either willing accomplices or manipulated pawns. My next confrontation was with my mother. I asked her to meet me at a restaurant different from where I'd met David, again with Marcus watching discreetly. When she arrived, she looked exhausted, her face lined with worry. She rushed to hug me, but I stepped back, not ready for physical contact. Lauren, thank God. I've been so worried. Where have you been? Why did you run off like that? Her concern seemed genuine, which made what I had to do even harder. Mom, I know about the changes to your will and trust. I know about the plan to have me declared mentally unfit. My mother's face crumpled. Oh, Lauren. She sat down heavily. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Explain why you would agree to cut me out of your will to help Paul and David take Amanda away from me. Tears filled her eyes. That's not what I agreed to. Paul said you were having problems, that you needed help but wouldn't admit it. He showed me reports from doctors, statements from friends. He said the legal maneuvers were just to ensure you got the help you needed, that everything would go back to normal afterward. And you believed him without even talking to me? He had so much evidence, Lauren. And there were things I'd noticed myself. You seemed anxious, talking about missing items, feeling watched. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I never agreed to them taking Amanda permanently or cutting you out completely. Paul said it was all temporary, just until you were better. I showed her the actual documents she had signed. This isn't temporary, Mom. This permanently removes me as your beneficiary and trustee. Did you even read what you were signing? She looked at the papers in confusion. That's not what Paul explained to me. He said these were just precautionary measures. He lied to you. They all did. They're after your money and my daughter, and they used you to make it happen. My mother's hands trembled as she processed this. I never wanted to hurt you, Lauren. You have to believe that. Paul was so convincing, and he had Elaine backing him up with all her psychology expertise. They made me feel like I was helping you. I wanted to believe her, but the betrayal was too fresh. If you want to make this right, you need to revoke these documents immediately. And you need to tell everyone involved that you made a mistake, that you don't believe I'm unstable. Of course I will. She reached for my hand again, and this time I let her take it. Lauren, I am so sorry. I should have trusted my instincts. At the party, I knew something wasn't right. That's why I was crying in the bathroom. It felt wrong. But Paul had me so confused. It was a start, but I knew the battle was far from over. Paul wouldn't give up easily, especially not with financial desperation driving him. My confrontation with Paul was the most volatile. He came to the meeting already defensive, having heard from both David and my mother. You've been busy, he said as he sat down across from me in the third cafe I'd chosen for these meetings, filling Mom's head with your paranoid theories, threatening David. Not theories, Paul. Facts. I placed a recorder on the table between us. This conversation is being recorded, just so we're clear. His jaw tightened. More evidence of your unstable behavior. Let's cut the act. I have the emails between you and David. I have the fake medical reports you created. I have evidence that you've been entering my house without permission. I have everything. Paul's expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. You don't have anything except a persecution complex. Mom and I were trying to help you. You need professional help, Lauren. What I need is for you to back off. Revoke the changes to Mom's will. Leave Amanda alone and admit what you've done, or I'll take everything I have to the police. Fraud, conspiracy, breaking and entering. How does that sound for your financial career? Paul's facade cracked, his face flushing with anger. You think you've won? You have no idea what you're up against. Even if Mom backs out, I still have enough to convince a judge you're unfit. One emotional outburst, one scene in public, that's all I need. Is that why you're trying to provoke me right now? Hoping I'll make a scene? He smiled coldly. You always were too smart for your own good. Smart enough to protect myself and my daughter from you. Paul leaned forward. This isn't over, Lauren. Not by a long shot. You think you can turn Mom against me? I've been her favorite for 40 years. You think you can scare David off? He's desperate for money. And Elaine has contacts throughout the psychological community who will back up our claims. Why, Paul? Is it really just about money? Your firm is failing. I know that. But to destroy your own sister's life? Something dark flickered across his face. You've always had it easy. The golden child who could do no wrong. Mom's perfect daughter with her perfect life. Even after your divorce, you landed on your feet. Meanwhile, I've worked my ass off for everything I have, and it's slipping away because of one bad investment year. The raw jealousy in his voice surprised me. All these years I thought he was the favorite, the successful one. So this is revenge, punishment for a perceived slight? This is survival. Paul stood up. You had your chance to go quietly, to accept help for your condition. You chose war instead. Don't be surprised by the casualties. He walked out, leaving his threat hanging in the air. I sat there for a long time, the recorder still running, capturing only the ambient cafe noise and my shaky breathing. The confrontations confirmed what I had suspected. My mother was a pawn, manipulated by Paul and Elaine. David was a willing accomplice, driven by financial desperation. And Paul, my own brother, was the mastermind, fueled by a resentment I never knew existed. The battle lines were clearly drawn now, but Paul's parting words worried me. What did he mean by casualties? Would he try to hurt me physically? Or was he referring to my relationship with Amanda? I got my answer the next day when I received a text from David. Given your erratic behavior and the concerns raised by multiple family members, I'm filing for emergency custody of Amanda. My lawyer will be in touch. They were using my daughter as leverage, hoping I would back down to avoid a messy custody battle. They had underestimated how far I would go to protect her. I called my lawyer immediately, forwarding all the evidence Marcus had gathered. The legal battle had begun, and I was ready to fight with everything I had. After David's custody threat, I knew I needed more than just a private investigator. I needed legal representation from someone who wouldn't be intimidated by Paul's connections or David's desperation. My lawyer recommended Sarah Chen, a family court attorney with a reputation for handling complex, high-conflict custody cases. Sarah reviewed the evidence Marcus had gathered and didn't mince words. "They've been building this case against you for months. It's calculated and comprehensive, but it's also largely fabricated, which is where they're vulnerable." "What's our strategy?" I asked, exhausted but determined. "Counteroffense. We don't just defend against their claims of your instability. We expose their conspiracy and financial motivations." Sarah spread the documents across her desk. "We need Amanda's testimony about what she overheard. Is she willing to speak up?" The thought of involving Amanda in a legal battle made my stomach turn, but I knew it might be necessary. "I'll talk to her. She's brave, but she's only 10. Children's testimony can be handled sensitively. She wouldn't need to appear in court necessarily, but her account of overhearing her father and uncle's conversation is compelling evidence of conspiracy." I agreed to discuss it with Amanda with the help of a child psychologist who could ensure the process wouldn't traumatize her. Sarah continued outlining our strategy. "We also need to recover any digital evidence from family communications, emails, texts, anything that shows coordination of this plan. Marcus has some, but not everything. We'll file for discovery and will depose everyone involved, including your mother." The mention of my mother reminded me of another crucial step. I need to have a real conversation with my mother, make sure she fully understands what's happening. With Sarah working on the legal front, I arranged to meet my mother at her house, a place I once felt safe but now approached with caution. Marcus had swept the house for recording devices beforehand, finding 2 in the living room, which we left in place but were careful to avoid. My mother was waiting for me with tea prepared, her hand shaking slightly as she poured. "I've revoked those documents," she said without preamble. I called Michael Thompson myself and made it clear I was misled about their content. "Thank you," I said, accepting the tea but not drinking it yet. But that's just the beginning. Paul and David are still moving forward. David is filing for emergency custody of Amanda. She set down her cup with a clatter. "He can't do that." "On what grounds?" "The same false narrative they've been building, that I'm mentally unstable, paranoid, a danger to myself and possibly Amanda." Tears filled my mother's eyes. "This is all my fault. I should never have listened to Paul." "Mom, I need to understand exactly what Paul told you, what you agreed to, and what you didn't know about." Over the next 2 hours, my mother revealed how Paul had systematically manipulated her, showing her fabricated evidence of my supposed mental decline, having Elaine explain my symptoms in clinical terms, and framing all their actions as an intervention to help me. "He said we needed to confront you at my birthday party with everyone present as witnesses and support, that you might react badly at first but ultimately would accept the help we were offering." She wiped her eyes. "I was uncomfortable with the plan, but they made it sound like we were saving you from yourself. And the changes to your will and trust, Paul said they were temporary measures to protect your inheritance while you received treatment, that you might make rash financial decisions in your current state." She shook her head. "I never read the actual documents carefully. Paul had explained them to me, and I trusted him." The depth of Paul's deception was staggering. He had exploited our mother's trust completely, using her love for me as a weapon against both of us. "Mom, I need you to tell the truth to everyone about how Paul misled you about the real content of those documents, about everything." She straightened her shoulders. "I will. I'll testify if necessary. I won't let them hurt you or take Amanda." With my mother now firmly on my side, we began building our countercase in earnest. Amanda agreed to share what she had overheard, speaking with the child psychologist Sarah had recommended. Her clear, detailed account of the conversation between her father and uncle was powerful evidence of their intentions. Marcus continued his investigation, using his connections to recover deleted emails and text messages that further documented the conspiracy. One particularly damning exchange between Paul and Elaine discussed how to coach my mother on what to say to me at the birthday party to trigger an emotional response we can document. Sarah filed motions to dismiss David's emergency custody petition, including affidavits from Jillian and other friends attesting to my mental stability and parenting abilities. We also filed a countermotion detailing the conspiracy and requesting that David's visitation with Amanda be supervised until the case was resolved. Paul, realizing that his carefully constructed plan was unraveling, became increasingly desperate. He attempted to pressure my mother into retracting her new statement, alternating between emotional manipulation and veiled threats about her own mental competence. He said if I testified against him, he would suggest I was experiencing early dementia and had been manipulated by you, my mother told me after one particularly distressing phone call from Paul. Instead of intimidating her, his threats only strengthened her resolve to stand by me. Elaine, seeing the mounting evidence against them, began distancing herself from Paul's scheme. When deposed by Sarah, she claimed she had only been concerned about my well-being and had no knowledge of any financial motivations or custody plans. Her attempt to save herself provided us with yet another crack in their unified front. The most dramatic moment came during Paul's deposition. Faced with the recovered emails, text messages, and testimony from multiple sources, his carefully constructed facade began to crumble. When Sarah pressed him about his firm's financial troubles and his motives for gaining control of our mother's estate, he lost the composed demeanor he had maintained for months. "You have no idea what it's like to watch everything you've built slipping away," he snapped. "Lauren has always had everything handed to her. One divorce and suddenly everyone's rallying around poor Lauren while I'm facing financial ruin with no support from anyone." The outburst, captured on the official deposition record, revealed the true motivation behind his actions far more effectively than our accusations could have. David, seeing the case against him strengthening and lacking Paul's financial resources to continue the legal battle, was the first to cave. His lawyer approached Sarah about a settlement. In exchange for dropping his emergency custody petition and admitting his role in the conspiracy, he wanted guaranteed visitation rights with Amanda and no criminal charges. After consulting with me and Amanda, we agreed to modified terms. David would have supervised visitation only until he completed therapy and parenting classes, and he would provide a full written statement detailing the conspiracy and his involvement. With David's defection and statement, Paul's position became untenable. The family court judge dismissed the emergency custody petition and issued a stern rebuke to all parties involved in what she called a disturbing attempt to use the family court system as a weapon in a personal vendetta. The court proceedings revealed the full extent of the conspiracy to the extended family, most of whom had been kept in the dark about Paul and Elaine's true intentions. Uncle Dennis, who had been peripherally involved based on Paul's misrepresentations, apologized profusely for his role. Other family members expressed shock and dismay at what had nearly happened. My mother took the most public stand, sending a letter to every family member detailing how she had been manipulated and misled. "I allowed my trust in my son to cloud my judgment," she wrote. "In doing so, I nearly participated in a terrible injustice against my daughter. I share this not to vilify Paul, but to take responsibility for my own failure to question what I was being told and to remind us all that love should never be used as a weapon." The legal victory was comprehensive. The judge not only dismissed all claims against me but also issued a restraining order against Paul, preventing him from contacting me or Amanda. My mother revoked the fraudulent estate documents and created new ones with an independent lawyer, this time with ironclad provisions that could not be changed through manipulation. As news of Paul's actions spread through his professional circles, his already struggling firm faced further client departures. Elaine, though less directly implicated, found her psychology practice affected by association. David, humbled by the experience and the near loss of his relationship with Amanda, began the therapy and parenting classes required for supervised visitation. 3 months after that fateful phone call from Amanda, the acute crisis had passed. The legal battles were largely resolved in my favor, though emotional healing would take much longer. Family members who had been deceived or had stood by during the conspiracy were now reaching out, apologizing, asking for forgiveness and reconciliation. Some I was ready to forgive. Others would take more time. But through it all, the bond between Amanda and me had only grown stronger. Her courage in warning me, her resilience during the legal proceedings, and her wisdom beyond her years had saved us both. "You know what, Mom," she said one evening as we sat on our porch swing, finally feeling safe in our own home again. "I think we're going to be okay." Looking at my brave, perceptive daughter, I knew she was right. Whatever came next, we would face it together, stronger for having weathered this storm. 3 months after the court officially dismissed David's custody petition and issued the restraining order against Paul, I was still processing everything that had happened. The acute danger had passed, but the emotional aftermath remained. How do you recover from a betrayal so fundamental, so calculated by the people who were supposed to love you most? Amanda and I settled back into our home, installing a comprehensive security system that helped us both sleep better at night. We established new routines, finding comfort in ordinary moments: weekend pancake breakfasts, movie nights with elaborate pillow forts, bike rides around the neighborhood. Slowly, our house began to feel like a safe haven again rather than a place that had been violated. The first family member to truly attempt reconciliation was my mother. Initially, I kept her at arm's length, unable to fully trust her despite understanding how she had been manipulated. But her consistent efforts to make amends gradually softened my resistance. "I know I failed you," she said during one of our early awkward visits. "As a mother, my job was to protect you, not become a weapon used against you. I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn back your trust." What touched me most was her interaction with Amanda. Instead of trying to minimize what had happened or shield Amanda from difficult emotions, my mother addressed it directly. "I made a terrible mistake, Amanda," she told my daughter, kneeling to meet her at eye level. "I believed people I shouldn't have believed and didn't listen to my heart. But you were brave and smart and saved your mom when the adults around her failed. I am so proud of you and so sorry I put you in that position." Amanda, with her remarkable capacity for understanding, hugged her grandmother. "Everyone makes mistakes, Grandma, even big ones." My mother moved in with us temporarily while recovering from a minor surgery about 2 months after the court case ended. That shared time under one roof, with its mundane moments and necessary cooperation, did more to rebuild our relationship than any number of apologies could have. By the time she returned to her own home, we had established a new foundation based on hard-earned honesty and respect. Paul's journey toward accountability took longer and remained incomplete. After the initial shock of his legal defeat and professional repercussions, he swung between angry denial and desperate attempts to justify his actions. His first attempts at communication, circumventing the restraining order by sending messages through other family members, focused on his own hardships rather than genuine remorse. "Tell Lauren I've lost everything because of this," he told our Aunt Clara to relay to me. "My business is failing. Elaine is talking about separation. Is she happy now?" I refused to engage with these manipulative messages, maintaining my boundaries and focusing on my own healing. It was 6 weeks before Paul sent a letter that showed the first glimmers of genuine accountability. "I've started therapy," he wrote. "My therapist says I need to take responsibility for my actions without qualifications or excuses. So here it is. What I did was wrong. Not because it failed, but because it was a violation of trust and family bonds. I was so focused on my financial problems and my own resentments that I convinced myself the end justified the means. I know words mean little at this point, but I am sorry, Lauren. Truly sorry." I didn't respond immediately, taking time to consider whether his apology was sincere or just another manipulation. After consulting with my own therapist, I sent a brief acknowledgement: "I appreciate your apology and your steps toward change. I need more time." David's attempts at reconciliation were more practical, centered around rebuilding his relationship with Amanda. He completed the required therapy and parenting classes, showing up consistently for supervised visitation and respecting the established boundaries. He never missed a session, arrived prepared with activities Amanda enjoyed, and made genuine efforts to listen to her rather than imposing his own agenda. "I messed up, kiddo," I overheard him tell her during one visit. "I got scared about money and made really bad choices. But that's on me, not on you or your mom. I'm going to work really hard to be the dad you deserve." Amanda, initially hesitant around her father, gradually relaxed as his behavior remained consistent. After 2 months of supervised visits, she told me she felt comfortable with occasional unsupervised time. We started with short outings to public places, gradually extending to longer visits as trust rebuilt. Elaine was the only one who never attempted meaningful reconciliation. She and Paul separated a month after the court case, and she moved to another state to rebuild her practice. The last I heard, she was presenting herself as the whistleblower who had exposed Paul's scheme, a revisionist history that said more about her character than any apology could have. My own healing process was neither linear nor simple. I worked with a therapist who specialized in family betrayal trauma, gradually processing the anger, grief, and fear that surfaced in unexpected moments. There were days when I felt strong and forward-looking and days when the weight of what had happened left me struggling to get out of bed. Healing isn't about forgetting or even necessarily forgiving, my therapist reminded me. It's about integrating the experience into your life story in a way that doesn't define your future. I took those words to heart, working to find a balance between acknowledging the trauma and preventing it from consuming me. I joined a support group for parents who had experienced custody battles, finding solace in sharing with others who understood the unique pain of having a child used as leverage. Professionally, I took a brief leave of absence from real estate, using the time to reassess my career goals. The experience had left me with a deeper understanding of legal and family dynamics, and I began exploring how I might use that knowledge to help others. I enrolled in courses toward a certification in family mediation, finding purpose in the possibility of helping other families navigate conflict with less trauma. Amanda's recovery mirrored my own in many ways, with good days and difficult ones. She sometimes had nightmares about being taken away or about overhearing more secret plans. We developed a ritual for those nights, making hot chocolate and sitting together in our pajamas, talking about her fears until they became manageable again. Her school counselor recommended an expressive arts therapy group for children who had experienced family trauma. There, Amanda created a series of drawings that tracked her emotional journey from fear to security. The final drawing in the series showed our family as a kind of solar system with different people at different distances from the central sun that represented her and me together. "Some people are far away now, like Uncle Paul," she explained. "Some are getting closer again, like Grandma and Dad. But you and me, we're always at the center." As the 3-month mark approached, I faced decisions about which relationships to rebuild and which to leave behind. It wasn't as simple as forgiving the people who apologized and cutting off those who didn't. Some apologies felt incomplete or strategic rather than genuine. Some relationships, while damaged, still held value worth salvaging. I developed a set of personal criteria for allowing people back into our lives. Had they taken full responsibility without deflecting blame? Had they demonstrated changed behavior over time, not just offered words? Did they respect my boundaries and Amanda's? And perhaps most importantly, did maintaining a relationship with them contribute positively to our well-being, or did it drain our emotional resources? Using these criteria, I established new boundaries with various family members. My mother was welcomed fully back into our lives with a new, more honest relationship. David continued his gradual journey back into Amanda's life with clear expectations and ongoing evaluation. Uncle Dennis and Aunt Clara, who had been peripherally involved but had made genuine amends, were cautiously welcomed back for occasional family gatherings. Paul remained at a distance, his restraining order eventually expired without renewal. I informed him through my lawyer that any future contact would need to begin with therapy sessions involving both of us, a boundary he initially resisted but eventually accepted. Whether those sessions would lead to reconciliation remained to be seen. 3 months after the legal battle ended, the text messages and calls asking for forgiveness had mostly subsided. Those who truly cared had either earned their way back into our lives or were patiently respecting our timeline. Those who had been more invested in appearance than genuine reconciliation had moved on to other dramas. On a warm Saturday evening, Amanda and I sat on our back porch, watching fireflies emerge as dusk settled. She had been quiet all day, contemplative in a way that told me something was on her mind. "Mom," she finally said, "do you think people can really change? Like really deep down change?" I considered the question carefully, knowing she wasn't asking about people in general. She was asking about her father, her uncle, the people who had betrayed us. "I think people can change when three things happen," I said. First, they have to truly see and admit the harm they've caused without excuses. Second, they need to genuinely want to be different, not just avoid consequences. And third, they need to put in the consistent work over time, even when it's hard. Amanda nodded, absorbing this. "And when they change, do we have to let them back in?" "No, sweetheart. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. We can wish someone well on their journey without walking alongside them." I put my arm around her shoulders. "You get to decide who has a place in your life now and always. Trust your instincts. They've served you well so far." She leaned against me, quiet for another moment. "I think I want to keep trying with Dad. He's really trying too. But Uncle Paul still scares me." "Then that's what we'll do. And if anything changes, we'll adjust." I kissed the top of her head. "The most important thing is that you and I are okay. The rest we'll figure out as we go." As darkness fell completely and the fireflies multiplied, creating constellations in our backyard, I reflected on all we had survived. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also revealed strengths I hadn't known I possessed. It had shown me who I could truly count on and taught me to trust my instincts. Most importantly, it had deepened the bond between my daughter and me, a relationship built on honesty, courage, and unwavering support. Family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who stands beside you when others are plotting behind your back. Sometimes it's a 10-year-old girl brave enough to warn her mother of danger. Sometimes it's friends who become your shelter in the storm. And sometimes, if you're fortunate, it's relatives who earn their way back into your heart through genuine remorse and changed behavior. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive everyone involved in the conspiracy against me. Forgiveness is a process, not a destination. And some wounds leave permanent scars. What I do know is that Amanda and I survived, stronger and wiser, ready to build a future defined by trust rather than betrayal.